Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be doing another recent reads video. I do want to mention really quick before I get into the books. One thing that I'm going to be changing a little bit about my channel is that I won't be doing TBR videos anymore, and I won't be doing hauls, which I haven't done a haul in a long time anyway. But I won't be doing them on YouTube, but I will post them on Instagram. So if you're still interested in TBRs, the reason for this is because I was thinking about it and I was like, I really don't need to make a whole video about what books I'm planning on reading. I can simply take a pic of it and put it on Instagram with the quick caption of the books. I mean, I'm probably not going to really go into what each book is about in the TBR anyway, since I am doing these recent reads. You'll find out what the book is about when I talk about them in a recent read. So that's why I was kind of like, it doesn't really make sense to continue doing TBRs. So I will just put them on Instagram, and I'm actually going to be going back to doing weekly TBRs. I did that for a while, a few years ago, where I was doing like Monday missions. So rather than figuring out every book I wanted to read for the month, I just had some books selected for that week. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. That will be on my Instagram, as well as any book hauls that I might do. I haven't really been hauling any books lately. I think from the beginning of the year till now, I probably got like 5 books, which I'll do like a haul on Instagram of what those books were. Most of them you've already seen in a recent reads or review video anyway. So yeah, that's something I'm going to be doing a little bit differently. So if you still want to see those, if you want to see the TBRs and the hauls, which the hauls won't be that often, but the TBRs will be every week. So if you still want to see that, make sure you're following me on Instagram. I will leave the link in the description below. And yeah, let's get into these books. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu. And this story is about Magnus and Alec. This takes place after the third book, City of Glass, kind of during the period of the fourth one, I believe. City of Fallen Angels, I think. I don't remember. I think that's the fourth one. It's been a while. So this takes place during that time. Magnus and Alec are on vacation in Europe, and while on vacation, their vacation gets interrupted when Tessa comes to Magnus to bring him some bad news. So Tessa tells Magnus that there's been a cult that started, and it's going around that he's the leader of this cult, which obviously, if you know Magnus, you know that wouldn't be true. So now Magnus and Alec are basically trying to get to the bottom of things, find out who started this cult, why they're claiming him as their leader, how are they going to stop this, all that good stuff. So to be honest, Magnus and Alec were never my favorite characters. I know there's some people's favorite characters, but they were never mine. I actually didn't even start caring about Magnus until I read the Bane Chronicles. And then I started caring more about him. But they're still not one of my favorite characters. And so reading this, I was kind of like, it's okay, but if I could have any couple in the Shadowhunter world to follow as a series. I would love to see Simon and Izzy. Like, they are my favorite couple from the Mortal Instruments, and I was like, I want more Sizzy. So I wish we got a story with them, but we didn't. A couple other characters that we get to see in here that I like is Elaine and Helen. So I also really like their characters as well. And I loved when they got introduced in this story. And I was just like, yes, can we get more Elaine and Helen? Like, I don't really care about having more Magnus and Alex stories, but if we can get more Elaine and Helen stories, I would be there for that, because I like their characters more. And this story did take me a while to get into, but not because of the pacing or anything. It is pretty fast paced, and there's a lot of action that goes into it. It's a Shadowhunters book, so especially for being one of the shorter books, it's pretty fast paced. But my thing is, like I said, Magnus and Alec are not my favorites, so it took me a while to get into it, to really care about what was happening. I will say, with this one, because of it being set in the past, and we already know what's going to happen with Magnus and Alec in the future, we already know what happens. The stakes in this book never feels like there. It never feels like there's actual real stakes in here. Whenever something bad happened to Alec or something happened to Magnus, I was always in the back of my head thinking, well, they're fine anyway. They're gonna make it out of this anyway. So it's like, really, there's nothing to keep me on the edge of my seat, because I'm like I've already read pretty much all of the Shadowhunter series. I finished the Dark Artifice trilogy now, so I know they're fine. I know they make it out of this alive. So the stakes are never high in this, and I think that's kind of the issue of when you have things set in the past like this. I feel like if we were going to have a story where the stakes actually felt high and it felt like they were in real danger, then this should have taken place after the events of the Dark Artifice. Because anything before that, it's like, we know they're fine. So what's the point? Overall, like I said, it was okay. I liked it more once Elaine and Helen were introduced. But it was okay. It was predictable. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. But thinking about it more, it's probably more a 3 stars. I just thought it was okay. I honestly don't know if I will continue with the series or not. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel. So this was my TBR jar pick from May. The challenge was actually to read a book set around a holiday other than Christmas. So any holiday other than Christmas, read a book set around that. Obviously, Halloween is kind of the easiest one to find a ton of books set around that holiday. So I went with Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel. So the first part of this book is pretty much a direct novelization of the movie, almost word for word exactly what happened in the movie. There are a couple lines that they added in here. There's some small details they added as well to kind of set things up for the sequel, but other than that, it was pretty much a direct novelization of the movie. And so that part's okay because I enjoyed the movie. The sequel, which is what takes up the majority of the book, I did not really care for the sequel all that much. The sequel takes place 25 years later, and we're following Poppy, who is the daughter of Max and Allison. And again, it's around Halloween time. And so Poppy grew up with the tales her family told her. Her parents and her Aunt Danny told her about the Sanderson sisters and what happened and that everything was real. But she still doesn't quite believe it herself. And so on Halloween night, which her parents always warned her, don't do anything crazy. They warned her about the sisters. They warned her about magic and all this stuff. But of course, in her attempts to impress her friend Isabel, who she has a crush on, she takes her and her other friend to the Sanderson house and pretty much gets tricked into saying a spell that brings the sisters back, and all chaos ensues from there. And Poppy and her friends have to try to fix things. And Binks and his sister Emily return as ghosts to kind of help and guide Poppy. I will say I do not think this book, even the sequel, I don't think it was meant to be taken in book form, reading form. This would be a better fit as a film, as a movie. Just like the first one was great. I'm not saying the sequel would be great, but it would be better as a film than as a book. Especially because there's one part in the middle of the sequel where there's like a musical number and Mary starts singing in here, which is weird because, and I listened to the audiobook as I read this, and they don't even sing the words in the audiobook. They kind of just speak it. So it's like, why is there? It just feels so out of place. I feel like maybe they were trying to do some type of musical number because, the first one had the I Put a Spell on You music. And so I think they tried to do a musical number for this sequel. But it just doesn't work. If it was a movie, it might have worked better. But remember, we're reading a book. And this it does not read like a book at all. It should have been a movie. Like I said, I'm not saying it would have been a good movie, but it probably would have been better as a movie than it is as a book. I also felt like the characters were a lot different in this. Mary, Winnie's sister, she didn't feel like the bumbling idiot that we kind of see in the first movie or the first part. She's more opinionated and thinks more for herself, which I don't think we really saw that in the first one. And so her character felt different. Also Max's character, I don't know. Because in the beginning we see Max, and he's a history teacher at Poppy's school, and I'm like, I would have never pictured him as a history teacher. But okay, so I don't know, the characters didn't really feel quite the same as they were in the first one. I also think the second part, the sequel, could have been much shorter. I felt like there's a lot that you kind of drag through. The last thing is the ending was pretty predictable, and they kind of left it open to be able to continue with the story. It wraps up, but there's like one little thing they left open to be able to expand on the story, but I don't think I would continue with the story. It's just, I really do not see this being as a story that's, good in book form. So I gave this 2.5 stars. The next book I read was American Street by E.B. Zoboi. So now we get into the books that I really, really enjoyed. So the first two were kind of eh. Now we get into the rest of the books that I loved. So American Street is a story about a girl named Fabiola who is a Haitian immigrant. She's come to America with her mom, but while she's at the airport, her mom gets detained and taken to a detention center in New Jersey, and she ends up having to go stay with her cousins and her aunt without her mom. This one is, it's a contemporary, but it's got magical realism in it. I really, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really wanted to pick this one up because I was told after I read Pride, I talked about how Pride by E.B. Zoboi was one that I picked up because of the Haitian Dominican character in that book, but we didn't really get to see the Haitian side of her culture. And then someone told me to try American Street because you see more of the Haitian culture in here, which you do, and I really enjoyed seeing that. I enjoyed reading about it in here, especially because, Fabiola is involved with the practice of voodoo, which is not voodoo the way people think of voodoo. It's not like, the little dolls you stick pins into when you want to hurt someone. That's not the voodoo we're talking about in here. It's more of a religion where there are different gods and goddesses, almost like Greek and Roman mythology. There's the goddess of beauty and the god of death, and it just reminds me of Greek and Roman mythology. And so there are these different gods that she prays to that help her in her journey. And so this was interesting to see and hear, especially because I didn't know much about the voodoo practices or the religion. In Haiti, there are a lot of people who do practice voodoo and stuff, but there are also a lot of Catholics in Haiti. And my mom was raised Catholic, so I never really knew much about the voodoo practices. I've heard a little bit here and there from my mom or my older brother, but I didn't really know much about it, and what I knew about it was more of the negative side of things. So it was interesting seeing how it played a role in Fabiola's life. This book is mainly told from Fabiola's point of view, but with some short chapters from the other characters written in almost like a letter form, as if they were writing letters to people. So I thought that was interesting, and I like kind of seeing little glimpses of the other characters as well. This was super engaging. I read this in one sitting. It's pretty short, and I read it in one sitting. It's really engaging, but it does, even though it's short and it's engaging, it does have a lot of heavy topics in here. So if you're not ready to read about some of that, it might not be the book to pick up. It does deal with domestic abuse in here, drugs, violence. So if that's not something you're ready for to pick up and read, then maybe don't pick this up. I will say I like that the ending was realistic and kind of true to the tone of the story. It's not like the neat, perfect, happy ending we always want, but it's realistic, and I felt like it really fit the story. So I like that. Overall, I really enjoyed it. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so another 4.5 star read for me was The Raven's Tale by Kat Winters. So this is based on the early life of Edgar Allan Poe. This takes place when he's around 17. And I'll just read you the synopsis real quick, so I think it summarizes it perfectly. 17-year-old Edgar Poe is on the brink of escaping from under the thumb of his foster family, the wealthy Allens. Once he's out of oppressive Richmond and away at college, things will change. He'll be free to pursue his art and leave the horrors of his past behind. Then, on the brink of his departure, a macabre muse named Lenore appears to him, tempting him to a life of dark poetry and gruesome tales. Eddie's foster father believes the muses are dangerous creatures who lead artists down a path of ruin, and no respectable person would answer theirs. But Lenore steps out of the shadows with the one request: let them see me. Will Eddie find the courage to answer her? So, I love this. First of all, this book is so beautiful. I wish this was not a library copy. I do plan on getting it sometime because I want to keep this. It's so pretty. And I wish I could show you the cover underneath the dust jacket because it's also really pretty. But aside from this book being physically beautiful, the writing is also really beautiful as well. And one thing I love that the author did was she wove in some of Poe's original poems into the story, and it seamlessly was woven in along with her own poetry in here. And so I love how this was done. We get to see this from 2 points of views: Edgar and his muse Lenore, who's personified in this. And I really enjoyed Lenore's perspective. She was an interesting character, and I really liked the chapters with her. I wish we got more with her. Edgar's chapters, the one kind of downside with this book was I got kind of bored with Edgar's chapters, especially in the middle. And I wished his parts were a little bit shorter, and we got to see Lenore a little bit more. But other than that, I really enjoyed this. One quote in here that I really loved was "Discouragement be damned," and that quote is basically saying, because of Edgar's background with his stepfather and kind of societal pressures, he felt like he shouldn't write, especially the things he wanted to write. There was a lot of his poetry took on a lot of dark tones. That's kind of like the internal struggle in this book that Edgar has to come to grasp with, is will he say, discouragement be damn, I'm going to follow my dreams and I'm going to write? Or is he going to let the pressure of his stepfather and what others tell him get to him and discourage him from writing? The next book I read was Kindred by Octavia Butler. And this is a historical fiction with a touch of sci-fi elements to it. And I say a touch of sci-fi elements because this does involve time travel, but the time travel is not the main part of the story, and it's not really centered around any science, so that's why I kind of say touch of scientific elements. But this is about a woman named Dana who lives in 1976 California, and she and her husband are moving into a new place when on her 26th birthday she kind of gets sucked back into time and ends up in Maryland in 1819. So when she first gets sucked back into time, she doesn't know where she is or what's going on, but she sees a little kid drowning, and she goes and saves him. She saves his life, and before she can find out much else about what's going on, she is transported back to her time. Now this happens several more times, and each time she has to save the life of this kid, Rufus. So when we first meet him, when she first saves him when he's drowning, he's about 5 years old. And she goes back throughout different times in his life in order to save him from dying, because he is her great grandfather. So that's where we're at with this. But each time Dana returns back in time, I think each time she goes back, she ends up being there longer and longer. And the thing is, it's super dangerous, obviously, for her to be back in that time period, because Dana, obviously, you can tell from the cover, she is black, and Rufus and his family are all white, and they are slave owners. And so this becomes, a very dangerous time for Dana to keep going back to, even though she's saving Rufus's life, but it's still dangerous for her being back during the time of slavery. So this book can get intense at times. There are scenes where we see slaves being beaten and whipped, and we even see Dana at one point being whipped and beaten. They also do talk about slave women in that time being raped, and one of the characters in here is actually raped by her master, but we don't see that rape scene described in here. It's just talked about. So if rape scenes are something that may be a trigger for you, it is talked about in here, but we don't actually see it happening. It kind of happens off the page, but it's discussed. I thought this book was very thought-provoking, especially when it came to looking at Rufus's character and his humanity. Because even though Rufus does some horrible things, we do see kind of this other side to him, just like Dana does in here. And so it's not that easy to completely demonize him and vilify him, even though he does do some terrible things. The other thing I thought that was interesting was we see another slave character in here. Because of her jealousy, she ends up getting Dana into trouble, and Dana ends up getting whipped and beaten. So I thought it was interesting to see that, knowing what was going to happen to Dana, knowing that she would be whipped and beaten and could have possibly been killed, she still decided to cause trouble for her. I think why that stood out to me is because it shows that we're all capable of doing evil things. Whether we're white, black, pink, purple, whatever, we're all humans and we're all capable of doing horrible things to one another. And I think this really shows that. So I really think this was a great book. It's super great for discussions in book clubs and in classrooms. Like, I really would love to see this more in classrooms. Like, if I got to read this in high school, oh my gosh, so much better than reading freaking To Kill a Mockingbird 3 freaking times. I was just... don't know why teachers love that book so damn much. I really don't know, but it annoyed me every year. What's on the reading list? To Kill a Mockingbird. Again, okay. So, teachers, please, give To Kill a Mockingbird a break. Put this one on your reading list. Super engaging, and I think makes for really great discussions. The only had kind of 2 issues with this. One was kind of the dialogue in when Dana was back in 1819. Because I found it interesting that the other slaves would always tell her, "Why do you talk like that? You sound white. You talk like them white folks." And yet, when the slaves were talking, at times, their dialogue, their speech, wasn't much different from Dana's. So I'm like, it's the way you talk isn't that much different from hers. So why is she talking like white folks and you're not? So I felt like there wasn't that consistency there. And then my only other thing was her arm being stuck in a wall. So in the beginning of the book, kind of in the, I think it's in the prologue, we get the end scene in the beginning of the book. So it's not really a spoiler because, like I said, it's in the beginning. But we see her arm was stuck in a wall somehow and got crushed in the wall or something. And so I kept wondering about that and wondering when we would get to that part of the book. We do finally get to it at the end, and when we see what happened, what led up to her arm being in that wall, I still didn't really understand how it happened. Like, I get what the author was trying to do with this. You know, she was trying to show how this journey and everything that Dana went through left her changed and not completely whole. Because, you know, that time period, going through and experiencing slavery, you know, you're not going to be you're not going to be left whole. And so I get that she was trying to show that. I feel like it wasn't explained very well what happened, and I wish it would have been explained a little bit better. So that was my only thing about this. But overall, I loved it. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that's pretty much it for this video. This is going to be a long one and an annoying one to edit. But that's it for this video. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know in the comments below what you thought. I'd really love to talk about them. So let me know what you thought in the comments below. And I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye!